Good afternoon. Welcome to our ACI Alliance Tuesday Talk. This webinar is being recorded and we're your moderators. I'm Andy Hill. I'm the president for the Center for Advancement of Next Gen Deaf, and my family is among some of the trailblazing families in the mid-1990s, early 2000s who chose cochlear implantation and listening and spoken language. I'm an advocate and champion for kids who are deaf and hard of hearing and their families. And I've worked with families for over 2 decades, and I'm also an ACIA Alliance State Champion. Joining me and moderating today's talk is Amy Byrath.
Hi, and welcome to our Tuesday talk. We're so thankful that you have joined us today. As Andy said, I'm Amy Byrath. I am an audiologist, a speech language pathologist, and a listening and spoken language specialist. I have been serving children who are deaf or hard of hearing and their families. Currently at the Moog Center for Deaf Education in St. Louis, and I've been here for more than 15 years. In addition to my work at the Moog Center, I am adjunct at Washington University in the program in Audiology and Communication Sciences, and I serve on the board of directors for the American Cochlear Implant Alliance. This particular talk is part of an ongoing series for parents, adults with hearing loss, family members, and others. As members of ACI Alliance Advocacy Network, CICAN, or Cochlear Implant Consumer Advocacy Network, we hope you learn from this session and consider getting involved in the work of ACI Alliance.
First, a quick review for the technology. We're going to go over the Zoom settings so that can help you. All right, and you'll see on your screen for closed captioning, you can click the live transcript box to enable captioning. It's a toggle switch, so you just click on that. If you have questions as Teresa presents today, please submit your question through the Q&A box. We'll be moderating that. And at the end of the session, we'll be going over all of the questions that you might have.
The American Cochlear Implants Alliance is a unique organization focused on cochlear implants across the care continuum. We were founded because it was felt that cochlear implants fall through the cracks, and they do so at other healthcare organizations. And we really wanted to focus attention on improving access to cochlear implants. The mission of the ACI Alliance is to support research, advance awareness, and advocacy.
Our CICAN is our consumer advocacy network. It's for adult consumers and family members of recipients of people who use cochlear implants. It's aimed at enhancing and enlarging the broader advocacy efforts with firsthand knowledge of cochlear implants. Personal stories and lived experiences make the difference in impacting decision makers, and it adds to the credibility with state and federal representatives on key issues. So your story is important and your voice is important.
We also want to share a few of the AC Alliance website resources that are available. You can see those on the screen.
And now, yes, I think we're ready for the next one. If you'll advance. Thank you, Teresa. And now we're delighted to introduce our featured speaker today. Teresa Caraway. Dr. Teresa Caraway is a speech language pathologist and listening and spoken language specialist, certified auditory verbal therapist. She's the incoming CEO of the Oberkotter Foundation and is the current CEO of Hearing First. In her work, Teresa supports families and professionals who work in the listening and spoken language, who are on that journey through advancing science and innovation, raising awareness, increasing access and education, and coordinating healthcare for hearing. With more than 35 years experience in auditory verbal practice, consulting and presenting, Dr. Caraway thrives on leading change in knowledge, skills, and systems so that individuals with hearing loss can reach their full auditory potential. Dr. Caraway has served as the founding CEO of Hearing First, founding president of the A.G. Bell Academy for Listening and Spoken Language, and co-founder and executive director for Hearts for Hearing. She served on the board of Auditory Verbal International and was a founding board member for the American Cochlear Implant Alliance. Welcome, Dr. Caraway, and thank you for taking the time to present to us today.
Well, thank you, Andy and Amy. I feel like I have like the A team introducing me. Two of my most favorite people in this whole world. It's great to see you on camera and to be with you today. A special thank you to ACIA for sponsoring the Tuesday Talks and for this kind invitation to share a little bit about how to find a listing of spoken language professional to meet your needs. And so that's the topic for our day, for our time together. There are my disclosures as that we're required to produce. You know, I like to think about it that as we're talking and as we're meeting today, there is a baby that's being born into the family. And this family is welcoming their new little bundle of joy. And they most likely never in their wildest dreams thought that they would have a baby that would fail newborn hearing screening and be subsequently identified as being deaf or hard of hearing. So for most parents, we know that it comes out of the blue. Most babies who are born deaf or hard of hearing are born to two hearing parents. And so it starts and begins on this journey that I think that as professionals, we need to always remember that we chose this as a profession and families didn't choose this, and that our role is to walk along beside you. And so as family members, I want the message to be that you are not alone in this journey. You have caring professionals that can surround you and support you so that you can reach your desired outcome that you have for your baby. But when families do receive that news, it may come to them as a surprise, as a shock. And if you've ever gone to, let's say, purchase a home and have to sign loan papers or purchase a car or lease an apartment, if you've ever had that kind of life experience, you know that there were a lot of terms that were thrown at you, a lot of paperwork that came your way. And I don't know about you, but I think I'm kind of a smart person, but I signed all those forms anyway, and they could have been asking me to give away my firstborn child because little did I know and understand everything that they were throwing at me. And I think many families, as I've learned from families and walked this journey with families, I know that they too feel like they've been thrown into this whole world of all this terminology, so much to learn, and really not quite knowing what to look for or how to navigate that, but they know what they want for their baby. They know that they want their child. Most often families want their babies to speak the language of the home, to the heart language of the home. They want their children to grow up to participate in those family stories. They want their child to go to regular school, play with their neighborhood friends, and be great readers and talkers and have a great academic career that leads to a life of great professional and personal flexibility. But at that moment in time, when that baby has failed newborn hearing screening or has just been identified, it can be overwhelming because you don't know what you don't know to even begin to look for and what to ask to begin to look for services. So that's what we're going to put the spotlight on today is finding an LSL professional who meets your needs. And I really hope that if you're a parent with us today, that you will find this empowering to empower you to know what questions to ask, to know what information to look for, so that you can get that best matchup that you need for your child and your family. And then if you're a professional watching today and participating with us today, I hope that you will be equipped with thinking about what types of information should you make sure that you are providing families and being very proactive in terms of that information that is so important that we need to make sure that we're sharing. So we're on this journey together. And I just want to say that I have learned my best lessons from families who have dared to dream that their baby could listen and talk, but who also have allowed me the humble privilege of sharing in their journey and walking along beside them. So hats off to parents in terms of you are our best guides, and we learn about doing this better when you share with us and share your journey. So one of the first things that I want to think about is that when we define services that's right for your child and your family, it's not only about finding a solution, but it's really about building relationships. In other words, you will be building your support team, and that relationship will be very important in terms of the days and the journey that you'll walk together. And so you really want to seek a professional or a team of professionals who have expertise in teaching spoken language through listening for children who are deaf or hard of hearing. You really want a professional who seeks to understand your needs, seeks to understand your concerns, and will work collaboratively with you so that you can achieve the goals you have for your child and that future that you have for them. So I think that's important. It's about relationships. It's about looking for that expertise. And it's about finding a professional or a team with that collaborative spirit who wants to support you in your desired outcome. So the great news is that if listening and spoken language and literacy is a desired outcome that you want for your child and for your baby, there is a proven path. In other words, we do know what it takes. And this is very high evidence-based, evidence-informed, that with these 6 steps, we know that this is the path, this is the roadmap to achieve the outcome that you desire for your child. And the first thing is how important it is that you get your child their hearing technology immediately after identification. Most babies start with hearing aids. And one of the terrific things about hearing technology today is that no matter what the severity or the degree of hearing loss, we have a full continuum of amazing hearing technology that can provide your child's little brain with access to all the sounds of speech. And we know that that's critical to grow a listener and talker. Is the first step is to make sure they have access to all the sounds of speech through their ears, because as humans, we're pre-wired to learn spoken language and learn how to talk through our ears. So that's the very first step. And then the second step is, once that hearing technology is secured, making sure that that child or that baby is wearing them all waking hours. Now, that sometimes is easier said than done. And by the time you persevere through the sets of ear moles, if you started with that as an infant and that you walk that journey, you're going to feel at times that your middle name needs to be changed to Perseverance, because we know that it's so important. If those eyes are open, then the ears need to be on. And from our colleagues in Australia through the Lockheed study, we know that it has been documented that 10 hours of wear time per day is, or for the children who wore their hearing technology 10 hours per day or more, those are the children who had the best speech and language and literacy outcomes. So hearing technology is important. Persevering to keep technology on a little one is important. And what's at stake is their brain development. And that's why it's so important. The other next step on the path is finding your LSL interventionist and getting enrolled in LSL early intervention, or intervention, meaning auditory-based intervention, meaning a specialized intervention that teaches spoken language through specific strategies and techniques to place that emphasis on learning to listen with their new device. And then you want to look in that early intervention session that you as a parent will be coached and equipped and empowered to create auditory living all throughout your day at home, utilizing those specialized strategies and techniques that your early interventionist will equip you with and coach you to gain those skills and that knowledge. And then talk, read, play and sing with your child. We know that how important it is that every experience that you, as you engage with your baby and with your child, what you're doing is you are making a difference and growing their brain to make them smarter, to do better in school, to achieve higher literacy skills, and to become a great conversationalist and a terrific reader. And that's what's important. And it all begins with hearing and access to all the sounds of speech, and then learning spoken language through listening. And the sixth step, or the next on the proven path, is that ongoing audiological management or audiology services with a pediatric audiologist. Why is that important? Because needing to make sure and being aggressive with managing that technology, understanding what your child's hearing loss is about, and knowing how to manage that, your pediatric audiologist is another key relationship in this journey. So that's the proven path. And it sounds kind of, when you see it laid out, you think, I can do that. But sometimes it gets to be a little difficult with how do you actually find a team that knows and understands that proven path. So I like this question here. Why did the parent looking for LSL services carry a ladder? Do you know what the answer is? Because they were looking high and low. Unfortunately, there are many families who feel like they're carrying around a big ladder, looking high and low for the LSL services that will support them in reaching their desired outcome. For some families, they don't have to carry their ladder so far or for so long. The pieces fall into place. And that's one of the things that ACIA, along with collaborating with other professional organizations and other industry partners, is that we want to make sure that no matter where a child lives, that if they want their baby to have access to listening and talking, access to hearing technology, access to cochlear implantation, that they don't have to search so high and low. So joining the efforts of ACIA for advocacy, to promote access, and to support families in reaching their desired outcome is just so critical, because we really would like to not have parents have to carry a big ladder around and look high and low. So it takes the efforts of all of us to make that happen. But if you are a parent and you're seeking at where to look, well, where do you start? How do you find a professional that will support you and your child? And one of the very first steps you have to take is finding a pediatric audiologist, and finding that means an audiologist who has expertise and experience in little ones. Little ones are very different than adults, aren't they? So we want to make sure that there's a pediatric audiologist involved if in your child's management, and also an interventionist who has listening and spoken language expertise. That can be a teacher of the deaf, it can be a speech pathologist, it could be an audiologist who is an LSL interventionist. But to find these individuals, to find these professionals, search and look at online directories. There are online directories available from the American Academy of Audiology. The American Cochlear Implant Alliance, or ACIA, has a search function where you can find teams, cochlear implant teams, that work together to support access to and quality care in cochlear implantation. The American Speech and Hearing Association also has a directory to find professionals. Through the A.G. Bell Association for the Deaf or Hard of Hearing, you can find an LSLS provider. And even through Eddie Powell's, which is the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Pediatric Audiology Link to Services. No wonder they call it Eddie Powell's. It's much easier to say. There you can also search by your state to find providers. And if all else fails, Dr. Google really can help us out here, where you search online for pediatric audiology or pediatric audiologist in your particular area, or LSL intervention services. But probably one of the best ways, or the best place to find the support that you need, is to ask for help with references. You might ask your pediatrician. You could ask your state's EDI program for references, but probably one of the most powerful ways is to ask other parents. And today, with the technology that we have to connect across the miles, no matter where you live, that finding a Facebook group, such as groups for families of children with hearing loss, or parents and families of children with cochlear implants, and ask about services in your particular area. That is one of the most powerful ways, I think, because it's one thing for professionals to share, but it's a whole nother thing to go straight to another family and learn from them who've been there, done that, and who might be a little bit further down the path in terms of where you might be with your child. So that is how you can begin to find the professionals that can support you in your desired outcome. So what I've done is I've put together 8 to navigate. These are 8 questions that you can ask when you are looking or seeking a professional to support you. These are also, if you're a professional listening today, I hope that you will see these as these are answers that you need to give. These are answers that as you meet families, you need to make sure you're providing this kind of information. And so that together, it's a great information exchange so that we can empower families to make decisions and to make choices and in terms of what's best for them and their family. So one of the first questions, and these seem kind of simple, but they are important in terms of these 8 to navigate. And one of the first ones is to ask, what is the knowledge and experience of the professional or of the team using an LSL approach? You want to listen for, have they have specialized training? Perhaps they have specialized certifications, such as the listening and spoken language specialist, CERT ABT or CERT AV Ed from the AG Bell Academy. You want to know what their experience has been, what their ongoing drive to learn more and to stay updated, to up-level their practice. You want to listen for, have they had expertise in terms of understanding how auditory skills and language skills, spoken language skills support each other to develop literacy skills. You want to know if they have had their knowledge and expertise in working with the age of child you are. That you have. So what is your knowledge and experience in working specifically? If you have an infant and toddler, birth to 3, those are very different little creatures because they can't walk into a sound booth or walk into a testing situation and raise their hand every time they hear a beep. It takes highly specialized skill in fitting and audiologically managing and activating technology with infants and toddlers and teaching them to listen and talk. I have to admit, when I was in graduate school, cochlear implants for adults were beginning clinical trials. Now, I kind of hate to admit that because you can maybe quickly do the math and figure out how old I was. But in other words, I had a lot to learn. If I were still relying on my graduate school experience, I would not be the person that you would want supporting you, whether you were a child or an adult. So, and also now, we're fitting babies within days of birth with their hearing aids and starting their hearing journey. And that's a very different experience in terms of learning, adapting, staying current with information, and also then being able to apply it to up-level practice to improve outcomes. So all of that's important. Perhaps you have a school-age child who has been a listener and now a cochlear implant may be being recommended, that you want to know what their experience has been with teaching an older child who is a listener, who's getting an implant. Maybe you have an older child who isn't a listener, and you want to know what their experience has been with that and how they would approach it. So you, in other words, seek to know, seek information on what has been that knowledge and experience of that professional working with a child or the adult you may have in your family. So another question to ask is, so how often will services be provided? For how long and where? You'll want to know that information. Is it that that you'll be seeing them 1 hour a week? Will you be seeing more than that? And learn about why they have the recommendation or the program that they've set up that they have. You'll want to know where that is. You'll want to know if you will be involved, how you will be involved as the parent or as a family member. And now with technology, perhaps there's a teleintervention services that you could access. It could be that they provide a hybrid, meaning that you do teleintervention for 3 out of the 4 weeks. And on the 4th week, you come into the hospital, the clinic, or the school and do face-to-face services. So in other words, today it can be highly customized to what your family needs are, but also most importantly, based upon what your child's needs are to support you in reaching your desired outcome. I think one of the things you want to listen for is you want to make sure that your providers, particularly your LSL provider, doesn't see your child as a lifer. And what I mean by that there shouldn't be this expectation that they're going to be in intervention until they graduate college. And so the whole goal is that we want to equip a child with the skills. We want to get a family and the child back on the royal road of life. But you still would need close monitoring, close involvement with that team of professionals. But it would change. It may change as that child changes over time and as their skills change. But it's always based upon the child, what the child's needs are. And that leads to question number 4. And that is how you want to ask and you want to know, how will this professional or this professional team evaluate your child's skills? How will they set the goals? How do they monitor that progress towards listening and spoken language development? And what is it what will they be doing? How will they know if your child is making the progress that's needed? I think one of the things to listen for here is that if your desire is for your child to listen and talk and develop age-appropriate literacy skills or reading skills, you'll want to listen for and ask if your LSL professional, if they evaluate your child's skills using standardized measures, in other words, using tests that have been developed, that are highly standardized, that they were to compare your child to their hearing friends. In other words, you making your child is closing that gap to develop age-appropriate speech and language and cognitive skills. And the way to do that is through one tool is through formal evaluations, comparing them to tests that have been standardized on hearing children for their speech, language, and cognitive development. So that would be an important thing to look for. And then I think to ask what happens, and you'll also want to listen for that a professional seeks to learn more about your child every time they see them. In other words, every single intervention session is a diagnostic session in nature. Together, the professional and the parent are discovering more about what that child's skill development is like, what they're doing, and celebrating that along the way. So that is important, that every session be viewed as being diagnostic in nature, meaning let's continue to learn more about your child, and also then a combination of those standardized measures to evaluate their progress, comparing it to hearing friends. All right. So I think the other thing that's going to be important to ask, question number 5 is, what are your expectations for my role as a parent, my role as a child, as my child's first teacher, and how will we work together? You'll want to know and explore what their philosophy is about guiding and supporting parents. You'll want to know how they plan to involve you. You'll want to know and making sure that you want them to build confidence and competence in you so that you can be your child's teacher, that throughout the day, throughout your daily living, you can make every day a listening language moment and capitalize on that. That you want to have a philosophy with a team or with a professional, that you are an important part of this team. You are the expert on your child. You know your child better than anyone else. And that team needs, and that professional should want and need and value your expertise as your child's expert. And so that's an important hallmark in terms of establishing a relationship, in terms of establishing your support team to reach your desired outcome. Then number 6 is, tell me what types of intervention activities what we'll be doing together. What will you be teaching my child and what will you be teaching me? And again, listening and asking for, what does that rhythm of a session typically look like? What can you expect? I mentioned earlier about going in and taking out a new loan or something, or feeling like all the paperwork that you're signing away. You want to make sure that you have an overview of what's going to happen. In other words, what can I expect at every session? What types of things will we be doing? What types of things will you be teaching and equipping me? And again, you'll be listening for, is there a coaching philosophy? Is there a philosophy that believes that I want to do what I can do to equip you and to support you? One of the things you might be surprised to hear is you might have a professional say that the parent is so important to this whole process that if anyone has to be sick, let it be the child, and leave the child at home for the parent and the professional to work together to plan and to know what the course of treatment is and what the goals and objectives are for the child and how they're going to get there. So that's how important that you as a parent are to the whole team and the process. So question number 7 is, this is important. How will you share information with me or with other members of my child's team? So perhaps, in other words, you want to know how they're going to keep you updated, how often they're going to share information, how often you'll be getting and updates and discussing your child's rate of progress, even the day-to-day information in terms of what the focus needs to be for the week and the homework for the week, or the focus that you should be emphasizing. And it's really critical. Some families and some centers and places are in a situation where everyone under their team and on their child's team is under the same roof, but that isn't always the case. So you want to know up front, how will all these team members communicate together so that everyone stays focused on the child's needs, stays in alignment, and keeps things moving forward? In other words, yeah, it's important that you may have to carry some of that information, but you want to make sure that everyone is sharing the vital pieces of information in a systematic and efficient way. So knowing how and discussing that up front of how team members will coordinate with each other and will keep each other informed, because each professional on your child's team, whether you're a pediatric audiologist, whether you're a surgeon, physician, neurotologist, whether you are a speech language pathologist, a teacher of the deaf, an LSL provider, each of those and you as the parent all bring a very different perspective about the child's and the child's needs, that when it's woven together, it creates a beautiful whole picture or tapestry of what that child's needs are in terms of supporting them and guiding them to be and reach their full potential. And then I think number 8, it needs to have a big O star right next to it. And that is, you will want to meet other children and families that professional or that program, that school, that clinic, that they have been serving and are serving, as well as any past graduates. In other words, you want to talk to other families who've been there, done that, seek their information, seek any counsel that they have. You want to see what the proof in the pudding is of all the efforts of what the program offers or what the professional offers. And it's a great way to establish those relationships for you to get that connection. That parent-to-parent connection is so vital in terms of and important for you to connect with other families and share that journey. So those are 8 to navigate. I hope that those equip you with questions to ask. And if you're professionals, information or answers we should be giving. There is a resource at Hearing First that I put the link here for you. If you'd like these questions, these 8 questions in a checklist format, where you could, as you interview professionals, as you interview teams and places where you might seek services, that you could even take notes and write down your answers, or make notes, take notations of things you want to make sure you ask. And as you do, so that's downloadable for you so that you can be empowered to ask and get the information that you need, again, to support you in your desired outcome. But I want to encourage you to keep at it and find what works for your family. And if you're having trouble finding the services or the professional that you need, you can always try other places, try other organizations. There may be an option school. There may be a special school. There may be a speech and hearing clinic, a hearing health clinic. There may be a hospital program. In other words, seek out all your options, seek out what those possibilities might be, and don't give up until you feel that you have are landed in the right place to support you and your child. And also, always look for an online option. Teleintervention is a possibility today. It's been found to be as effective, if not more so, in terms of equipping families and coaching them to be their child's first teacher and achieving outcomes. So make it work for your family and make sure that you feel comfortable with it and you know that it's a good match. So I hope that is helpful in terms of equipping. One of the things then, as you start services, that I'd like to remind you about, or just keep in mind, and that is to make sure that you are advocating for yourself as a parent. In other words, tell and share with your providers that how you like to learn new information. How do you best like to take in new information? You may be a person that you like to practice lots of things together. You're ready to jump in and let's practice everything together. Some of you may prefer that you like a little bit of written information or a little bit more about what you're going to be doing, overview, and then you're ready to practice together. That's how you learn best. Some of you and some of us, we like lots and lots and lots of detail. We want all the facts. We want as much information as we can have. And then we feel really comfortable practicing together. And some of us prefer that you just want to talk to other families and get tips from them. You want to do consultation with others, or it could be any combination of the above. The important thing is to share with your providers how you like to learn best. Because remember, intervention is about equipping you as the parent to be your child's first and most important teacher. And you have what it takes. And so asking and making sure that you're advocating and communicating that. I always so value that as a provider when a parent can tell me that, because now I can customize to meet that parent's needs and to best equip them. I think the other thing is to share that information so they know how best to support you. The other thing is that it's sometimes difficult But it is also very helpful for you to communicate if there was a particular session or something that the provider did or information they gave you that was helpful. Tell them that. Make sure you tell them you would like more of that. That was so helpful. Make sure that, or if there's something that you're doing together that isn't being as helpful, tell them you need less of that. In other words, be that an equal communicator with what your needs are, of what's going to be specialized for you so that you can be at your best too and be better equipped. And also never hesitate to share any concerns that you're having about your child or about the services. For example, a mom once, when I asked her what her biggest concern was for her child at that point in time, and she said, "Oh, it's really silly. It really doesn't have anything to do with him learning to listen and talk. We're just really concentrating on potty training right now, and it's just consuming me, and we're not doing real swell with it." Well, I want to know that as a provider. And why? Because potty training is a huge language learning time. You have to know the difference between wet and dry. You have to know the difference. I mean, think about all the concepts and the language that go with potty training. So knowing that as a provider, I could better support this mom in terms of her goal and her biggest concern at the moment in terms of potty training. And so that's why it's important to share all of those concerns or any concerns that you may be having of what's your most important, concern that about your child at that point in time. And don't hesitate to share that. Why? Because this is your support team. This is your team that is going to help you reach your desired outcome. And remember, they're there for you. They're there so that they walk along beside you and can be a guide and support you. And together you can collaboratively problem solve or challenge solve and overcome those concerns. So just tips for parents as you start services. Other helpful resources that you may find. It just happened that today we actually released a video on our YouTube channel at Hearing First on how to build your support team. It goes along great with today's topic, so go check that out when we're finished. Also, I want to encourage you to watch the LSL Life videos. These are family stories of very different families in different situations who have walked their journey of teaching their child to listen and talk. Most good number of these children have cochlear implants. So if you'd like to see how it all turned out, if you'd like to hear tips and things that parents wish they would have known then that they know now, this is I think you'll find these as helpful videos. So take advantage of those. The other thing in terms of resources that I would encourage you as a family, check out the resources and the things that are available at Hearing First. We're here to support you as well. And look at the family support community. Check out the Facebook group. If you're a professional, we have professional learning opportunities. We have free CEUs. And each for families and for professionals have communities that are separate and distinct to support families in reaching their desired outcome for their child, and professionals how to better support families and up-level their practice. So we'd love to see you there and love to have you be connected. I think the final thing that I would really want to make sure that I emphasize, and that is to remember this is your journey, and no one knows your child or your family like you do. No one else gets to decide what desired outcome you want for your child. If you want your child to listen and talk, then you are the most qualified person to make decisions for your child and their future. And sometimes it can be overwhelming because there is so much to learn. But as their parent, you already have what it takes. You can be equipped in terms of what it takes. And I want you to always remember that you are not alone. There's professionals from different, in terms of listening and spoken language professionals that can surround you and support you so that on your journey to teach your child to listen and talk. So it's really all about you and you getting to decide what's best for you and your family and what future you see for your child. So I think that's it and we're ready for questions and answers. I'll turn it back over to Amy and Andy.
Teresa, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I think that talking us through the proven path to successful LISL and literacy outcomes is a really great way to get us started in this conversation. And then how great to have the 8 to navigate. See what I did there? Great 8, navigate. I think that having those very specific questions to think about and to share with parents as they are seeking to put together their team really helps boil it down to some of the most very important things for families to consider. So thank you so much for that. We have a few questions in the Q&A pod, so we'll start with this one. So how do you know as a parent if you are with a good specialist, if it's an appropriate therapist, if they're doing good therapy? What red flags should we be looking for and know how to seek an appropriate one?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think that seeking a professional and red flags might be one who doesn't seek your input as a parent, who doesn't include you in their intervention, who isn't providing you feedback and input in terms of what you can be doing to support your child, and those would be red flags. Another red flag would be if I'm going to say you are never asked to observe or asked to be involved in that child's intervention. I think that if it is a person who is, another red flag would be if they don't have good working relationships with the pediatric audiologist and vice versa, because you want a team that's collaborative in terms of working together, that they're focused on your child and your child's needs and not about any extra stuff that may be out there. So I hope that is helpful in terms of that. And I think the last thing I would say is trust your gut. If your gut is telling you something's not quite right or something's not feeling right or not clicking for you, that would be another indicator that you might want to seek other services or other providers, or just to check them out and talk to other parents about what their experiences have been. Andy, would you say anything more to that as a parent in terms of red flags?
I think that's a wonderful list. Just reflecting back on our journey using the listening and spoken language communication mode, trusting my gut proved to be very valuable on lots of situations. I also think it's important to look for credentialed expertise wherever you can find it. In my personal experiences, not any speech language pathologist is prepared or equipped to guide families in the listening and spoken language communication mode. Mm-hmm. So I found it to be essential to look for those who had the LSLS Cert AVT designation, or now there is an LSLS Cert AV-Ed. And for our family, actually, a lot of the people were just beginning to get the certification, but there was a noticeable difference in their expertise and their ability to guide, and in the way that they evaluated during each session and could guide me as a parent. So
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely. The specialty certification does provide a guidepost for that lets parents know that there's some minimum qualifications and some extra specialization that has happened. You may also find someone who is on the journey towards certification. They may not have reached certification yet. And sometimes they are, in terms of that, what that means is it means they're being mentored by someone, that they're working really hard to improve their skill set. And some of the best interventionists that I've met are those who are currently on the journey who just haven't completed the journey yet. So I think looking for those opportunities are there as well. And that's the great thing about telepractice now. If you don't have a certified listening and spoken language specialist in your area, you could access those services through telepractice.
I think telepractice is a wonderful opportunity for parents today that was not available 20, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
A lot of car time. So
A lot of car time, right?
absolutely. We had one more question, and it arose when you were sharing about the Loki study and the importance of children wearing their devices 10 hours a day or more to promote the best outcome. The question is, what do you think of the terminology listening fatigue? That comes up a lot in social media.
Yeah.
And the questioner said she finds that it creates a lot of confusion for parents with young children with cochlear implants, the term listening fatigue and, taking listening breaks and things like that. Could you speak to that just a little bit?
Yeah. Listening is hard work. There's no doubt about that. And so one of the things that I would, encourage you to do is always think about the listening environment that you have the child. So minimizing background noise, like in your home. If you're sharing a book or having a dinner time, making sure the TV is off, making sure the extra music is off. Even making sure the dishwasher may not, is off if that is running, but be aware of that background noise. That would be number one. And then the second thing would be is make use of a remote mic or a personal FM system. That today, with today's technology, that ability to improve that signal over noise really reduces that and makes listening easier because it places the emphasis on that signal, on quality signal. So before I would ever like say my child needs a break from their technology, I would be looking for technology like a remote mic or a personal FM to overcome that fatigue, because I would want to make sure that brain has every listening language learning moment that it can have, because it's those meaningful experiences that shape the architecture of the brain. I think that there could be time, and so, yeah, I think it is, we know listening fatigue can be real, but I think we now have the technology also to overcome it, and rather than removing, taking the technology off.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that those are great suggestions. And I'm so glad you brought up remote mic technology related to providing the best access to sound and the difference in the technology that's available now versus what used to be available.
Right.
There were reasons in the past to consider not using remote microphone technology, and those reasons just don't exist anymore.
Right.
And, research is showing us that utilizing remote microphone technology, even in very young children, is making such a difference. And so in thinking about listening professionals, I think when you're talking to your pediatric audiologist, that's one of those things that really needs to be part of the discussion.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we think that that remote mic and personal FM systems and things might not be needed for a baby, but even starting very young with that, and that would be a great question to discuss with the pediatric audiologist, for sure. Thank you, Amy. Yeah.
Thank you. And Teresa, one other thing that I would like to ask you about and have you discuss, what about people who are at the very, very beginning of the journey and who don't even know what a pediatric audiologist is, or who don't know what LISL stands for, or what a listening professional even is? Can you speak to some resources that Hearing First has available related to helping people know even what the terms mean as they're starting on this unknown journey?
Yeah, thanks, Amy. It is. There's a whole bunch of new words, isn't it? And, we get around, I am guilty of throwing out the buzzwords, I think. And but yes, a pediatric audiologist, is someone who's highly specialized with training with children. It's that ear doctor, so to speak, or that audiologist that works with kiddos. And listening and LSL stands for listening and spoken language. And then specialist is a specialty certification. You can find access to both of those. There is a great on the website at Hearing First. You can actually hear, there's a video of a pediatric audiologist talking about what is a pediatric audiologist, what does she do? Also the CERT ABT and ABED talking about what they do. So I would highly encourage you to check out the website. You can just search for those and those will come up. I think we also have, keep an eye up, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We have new videos coming out all the time that our goal is for those to be conversational in nature and to equip families. So yeah, go check it out. There's a whole page on building your support team.
Thank you, Teresa.
Yes. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what Hearing First does in the work that I do with parents, and as an advocate, I refer families and professionals to the Hearing First website very regularly. It's a tremendous resource. The communities are outstanding. My only regret is that didn't exist 25 years ago, but that was in the process of being built, I suppose, over the long term. So thank you.
We've only been around for 7 years, right? But thank you, Andy. Thank you. I'll give you your $5 at the end of the talk, but thank you for that wonderful endorsement. But it takes a village. There's not any one single person, single entity, but it takes all of us, parents, professionals, working together to improve outcomes and improve services for all. And so it does take a village, and always open to every and any suggestion, particularly from parents, of what they need, what might be missing that would support them in their journey. But it's one of those humble privileges that we get to share in life, is to share that journey with the family. So thank you, ACIA, for sponsoring these talks.
Yeah. And Teresa, I think we have one more question. I think we have time for it, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
The question is, are these resources available in Spanish?
Yeah, there are some, a group of resources that are available in Spanish. If you will go to the website and put in Spanish resources, there's a whole slew of them that have been translated into Spanish. And so we've tried to, as we develop things, to also put them in Spanish. We still have some things missing. It's not 100%. And so relying on Google Translate and things like that. But if there are key resources that we have missing, not in Spanish, that need to be in Spanish, let us know. Okay, because it's one of those things, there is a huge need. So some, but not all, is I guess the answer.
Well, thank you so much, Teresa, and thank you to the American Cochlear Implant Alliance again for today. I believe we've got one last slide with just a few resources.
Sorry.
And that's, yes, and then that's, I think that's all we have for today, unless you have some final thoughts, Teresa.
No, I don't. I just think, check out these ACIA resources. Really and truly have been a leader in terms of setting, in terms of cochlear implantation, access to services. Get involved, and I appreciate all that the organization continues to do to advance access of this amazing device, and because it's pretty amazing what the opportunities that it does provide for children and adults today.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. This ends today's webinar.